Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What is the most WTF thing that has ever happened with your neighbor? Not safe for work. Posted one day ago. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. FBI raided my neighbor to the left, and the neighbor on my right came over asking if I could give him clean urine so he wouldn't get fired at work. He also bragged about being a bank robber in Reno. I tried to look it up but didn't find anything. I just wonder why he would say or do these things, lol. Definitely don't live in that neighborhood anymore. Not my neighbor, but my best friend's neighbor. I was there for a sleepover playing Settlers of Catan and listening to Mayday Parade when it happened. Husband came home with a shotgun and shot his toddler, wife, and then himself for unknown reasons. Pretty terrifying for a while till the police got there, since we had absolutely no idea what was happening. We all hid in the hurricane bathroom listening to my friend's dad talk to the 911 operator for what felt like an hour until it was safe to come out and get questioned. Unfortunately, none of them survived. I'm sure there are more awkward things that a downstairs neighbor could say to you casually, but right now I can't think of any. Stopped to have a casual chat with our downstairs neighbor when we first moved in. All normal small talk until he mentions that his bedroom is directly under ours, creepily smiles, and goes into detail about everything he's heard. Ugh. A long while ago, the woman a few houses down from us passed out in the alley by her garage. It was late at night and she was known to be a heavy drinker. The guy who lived next door to her came driving through the alley not long after she passed out and, well, he was drunk as well and hit her, thinking she was a trash bag left outside. She didn't survive. He decided to park in his own garage and run inside like nothing happened. My stepmom came home from her shift at the hospital soon after all this. SM saw the woman in the alley and got out to check on her. Then the guy comes out of his house freaking out, asking what happened and claiming stepmother hit and murdered this woman. Obviously, stepmother ignores him and calls the police. Dude still tries to convince the police that stepmom ran the woman over. It would have gone on much longer if the neighbors across the alley didn't have security cameras. The whole incident was recorded and the guy was quickly carted off to court. Apologies, I don't remember how or what he was charged with. This was a very long time ago. Effing crazy, man. Thanks, security cams. This isn't even everything that went down with that neighbor, just some not so brief highlights. My mom had this neighbor who pretended to be weak from cancer and chemo, so her landlord couldn't get mad at her for when trash bins were full and lawn was filthy. She even went as far as shaving her head and faking a limp, cane, and everything. Mom baked her some cookies and offered to take care of her bins and lawn. Neighbor spills about the scam. My mom, now enlightened about my neighbors, the fault in our star's bullshit, and tired of trash blowing into our yard, called the landlord. Neighbor wasn't happy and would blast music at ungodly hours of the night or wee morning to get back at my mom. Mom would get frustrated because she worked late and left early. Filed noise complaints to police. Police arrive. Neighbor claims my mom, old little Asian lady, punched her in the chest. Neighbor wants her arrested. Mom shows cops our security cam footage. No mom punching. Instead, finds crazy neighbor kicking her 9-year-old daughter out in the middle of the night. 9-year-old is banging on her door. My mom comes out to check on noise, tries to bring hysterical girl inside. It's like 2 a.m. Neighbor comes out and sprays her with the hose. Neighbor taken away. Daughter sent to live with dad. TL, DR. Neighbor faked cancer. Got arrested. Terror of a 10-year-old girl next door ended up dumping gasoline out on a lawnmower can on another neighbor's 10-year-old boy and threatened to set him on fire. Whoa. This little girl has also used the other neighbor's credit card for DoorDash and phone games, screams at her parents constantly, is always truant, and most recently, I saw her climb out of her window and grab DoorDash off the porch and climb back in. She's an absolute menace. Let's go, parents. Clearly, this young girl's behavior is troubling, but do we place any responsibility on the guardians or parents? I got drunk one night, stumbled home from the bar. My key wouldn't unlock the door, so I opened the living room window, crawled in, and passed out on the couch. Found out the next morning, it wasn't my house. They were running some sort of chop shop out of the garage. I was told they jackhammered through their garage floor to get to the gas line before the meter. Apparently, they did a poor job, and they caused a gas leak which led to an explosion that sent their garage door flying out into the street. I recently had a neighbor show up at the end of my front walk and freak the F out at my fiance because the phone company told her that she owes them almost $300 and that the equipment was at our address. Barring how insanely irresponsible it was of the phone company to casually give away our address, we proved to her during a tour of our house that we don't have any equipment from that company. She read the company the riot act and apologized to us. We're now all friends who mutually hate the phone company. Good. When the pit they kept in the cat carrier outside mauled their toddler, was supposed to have permanent scarring across her face and body, but they moved out shortly thereafter. I'm unsure now. I'd say the worst part is how the situation makes me feel bad since she had nothing to do with the way the pit bull was treated. One summer, several years ago, an old man moved into the rental next door with his granddaughter. Very few belongings, hardly ever saw them, a lot of food delivered. School started, but the girl didn't attend. I assume she was home taught. One afternoon, the police and several unmarked cars arrived. The old man was taken away in handcuffs. The cops told me the girl was a runaway. The man was never seen again. Wife was cheating with some lawyer who manipulated, or I don't know what he did, but he got her to sign over the house to him. Oh boy. And when the husband and wife refused to leave the property, all of them got into a huge argument. They almost started fist fighting, so the cops arrived. As soon as the cops left and the situation seemed under control, the lawyer went apeshit and pulled out a gun. He started shooting at them through the fence and actually shot the husband in the leg. Lawyer ran straight to his car, drove off, and I guess he realized what he did and went straight to the police station to report himself. The same cops that were here before came back, and I've never seen someone so confused as they were. They were like, WTF, we were just here and everything was fine. And we were eating pancakes. Hell of a night. My neighbor used to stay up all night, which isn't unusual by itself, but we would notice weird smells and some other stuff started disappearing from our backyard. They would also have people around all times of day and night, weird times like 3 a.m. After a few of our lost items reappeared in our neighbor's backyard, I decided it was time to give the local police a call, who said they can't do anything unless something actually happens. Well, something happened. My neighbor kicked their parents' dog, got bitten, was raided by police, had drugs stashed in the walls, and went to prison for 6 months. I was in my kitchen on my work break making a coffee. I was standing looking outside in the garden when all of a sudden I heard, "Don't run!" Next thing you know, my neighbor comes running and flings himself over my 6-foot fence, runs across my garden and jumps over another. 5 plainclothed police officers follow him over my fence, running frantically in my garden, and followed him over the fence. Turns out he had a shitload of drugs and money in his house, and the police had followed him home after he was acting suspicious. Funny part was, when he moved in, he asked for my Wi-Fi, as he was in the process of getting his Wi-Fi sorted. I found out a year after, before his arrest, that he was still using it because he was too broke to pay for his own. Turns out, he wasn't so broke after all. Our neighbor provides so much entertainment for us, we've set up a bar overlooking the front of our houses, which we've called Shenanigans, since that's what we get to watch from our bar stools. He's an on-off meth, crack, heroin addict who finds it impossible to live alone, so invites a series of other addicts or dealers to live with him. They stay for a few months until there's a huge fight or a series of them, and they move out again. In the 3 years we've lived here, we've had the police turn up most weeks. We've had several people overdose, and we've had multiple people using drugs while sitting in their cars in our driveway. There have been 2 kids living there for a few months each, and I have had to correct child protection about both of them. They've both moved out now, and I think about them constantly. Hope they're doing okay. Both absolutely adorable kids, and hearing the treatment one received from his mother makes me cry every time I think about it. The other one was talking about suicide at 8 years old. My heart is broken, knowing I can't help them any further. The thing is, our neighbor is lovely. He's just very lost and broken, and we have tried so hard to be supportive to him, particularly when he's going through another breakup or relapse. He means well. I got head lice from hugging him for a long time once, but he was just so sad and having horrible withdrawals. I called the police one time for a welfare check because he had discharged himself against advice from hospital following an overdose, and when I saw him the next day, he was a mess. I was so scared he'd overdose again, so I called the police to come with the crisis team. They did, and I was so worried I destroyed our good relationship, but the police came over afterwards and said he had actually thanked them for coming. He wanted me to know he appreciated that someone was looking out for him. I hope so much that he comes through all this and finds the help he needs, but he's showing signs of having relapsed again right now, so I'm not sure it'll be anytime soon. Mr. Frank was a great guy. He was a geologist in his working career and would share stories of all the different things he did or worked on. His wife was diagnosed with dementia and was prone to wandering, so she was placed in a home to keep a better eye on her. Without Ms. Mary, he was lost and took to drinking. Unfortunately, he was pulled over and lost his license because of the DUI. After he lost his license and upon the realization that he couldn't see his wife again without help, he shot himself. My grandma and I found him. Though she went into the room and saw him, she rushed me out the door before I could get a glimpse, and I'm thankful for that. Ms. Mary died almost a week later. Some dude who murdered somebody about 2 weeks prior broke into their apartment. They fired off 2 shots at police and proceeded to have an 8.5-hour negotiation. Local law enforcement, bomb squad, negotiations, some other agency, and finally National Guard all arrived on scene. Meanwhile, the only guidance that was given to us was from our apartment complex, disturbances being investigated. He eventually surrendered peacefully. Had a couple of shitheads living above me in college. One afternoon, I was home watching TV when I heard water trickling. I looked around and found it was running down the inside of my front door and coming in through the ceiling as well. Heard lots of running feet upstairs. I went up to find out just WTF was going on, and they were both running around with armloads of towels. Turned out the water connection to their washing machine had popped off, and the connection was freely gushing. Rather than turn the water off with the valve that was conveniently right effing there, they were trying to soak it all up with towels. Darwin Award. Not mine, but my sister's. She was renting this place with 2 guys and one day came home to find the Australian Federal Police raiding their home. They wanted to know which bedroom belonged to a particular housemate and then took his computer. Then, just to make it worse, a week later, the guy's mom comes around and tells them that her son isn't a criminal, and can they keep living with them because she thinks it's been good for her son to live with them. My sister and the other housemate say no, and they both move out to another house to get away from him. New next-door neighbors moved in, older couple. He would watch me work outside in the summer, just standing by his fence in the backyard and staring at me in a sports bra and shorts until I was done. I started exercising inside after that. We have a big family, lots of young kids that come over. He would watch them from his backyard. And one day we noticed the camera. No big deal. We live in a rural area and my family have security cameras too. His pointed to our side and backyard. All his cameras faced our yard, not his or any of his property. We eventually figured out how much he could see with those cameras, like into our living room through the glass doors and such. Weird. But then we realized how weird it was to have cameras pointing at little kids. We asked him to move them, went up to his door, and saw a computer with all the footage on it. Anyway, he was a registered sex offender from the next town over. He either had to move or be registered and put on the list. He moved. He was watching us constantly, even my little kid cousins, and most likely touching himself. I swear he was when I was working out, but had no proof. Our family eventually argued with his, and I got a call one night that my twin had jumped his fence and half my family had to beat the shit out of him and his family. They moved. And our last post here tonight is about Jeff. I hope our original poster is right about Jeff, and that he can be reunited someday. He went missing. I never really talked to Jeff, but he would call down from the balcony sometimes to say good morning when I walked my dog. Middle-aged white guy, seemed nice enough. Our apartments are adjacent, and I was used to only seeing him once in a while. One day, the police knock on the door. My dog thinks it's our door, so I open it, and the cop asks, "You seen this guy around? He hasn't shown up to work today." Sadly, I had not. I thought maybe a car was his, but I didn't want to be wrong. A woman I decided is his daughter was with the cops. His car and apartment sat empty for months. Eventually, they towed the car and cleaned out the apartment. I choose to believe Jeff escaped life as a retired hitman. They tried to pull him back in, and he fled to a tropical island. Sadly, he had to leave his daughter behind, or she'd be in danger.